I think we should also end the war in Afghanistan. We got a lot of problems with infrastructure in our own country without spending $50 billion a year in Afghanistan. And it's mostly not to fight war, it's to build infrastructure for them. It's time they fight for themselves. It just is an enormous expenditure of money and also a waste of lives.
Thank you for coming. What a great crowd. What a great crowd. Absolutely, absolutely. I have a question for you. Are you willing to trade your liberty for a false sense of safety? Now they tell you you'll be safe and everything will be fine if you just give up your liberty. But what if it's all a lie? What if they're lying to you? What if they're asking you to trade your youth, to trade your graduation from high school or college? What if everything they're telling you about it is a lie? They tell you to wear a mask and the virus will go away. Guess what? If you look at the mask mandates, when they started telling you you had to wear a mask, every country, every state, every chart you look at, as soon as the masks were mandated, the incidence of the disease rose exponentially. Now, I'm not saying the mask caused the disease, but if you looked at the chart, you could actually say, oh my goodness, the masks are causing the disease. That's not true. But there's no evidence that the mandates are working. Do you know who ought to be sued for malpractice? Yes, Fauci, yes. The guy on CNN, that TV Dr. Gupta, here's what he said the other day. Here's what the famous Dr. Gupta said. He said, put your mask on, it's much better than a vaccine. Crazy, stupid, malpractice. The masks aren't working. If you look at a cloth mask, you might as well wear your underwear over your face, all right? The cloth masks don't work at all, so they're lying to you. Now, I'm not saying all masks don't work. The cloth mask, if you do a penetration study of it with sodium chloride particles the same size as the virus, 97% of the particles go through the cloth mask. They do not work. If you measure a surgical mask, it blocks half of the viral particles. And then if you measure an N95 mask, it blocks about 99% of it. So what we should be saying, if we were honest, is that if you are at high risk, if you were older or you have other diseases, wear a mask, but wear one that works. They're lying to us. Fauci out and out lied in the beginning. Why did he lie? I actually think he thought masks might work in the very beginning, but he was afraid you'd buy too many of them. And he was afraid there'd be a shortage, so he told you something that wasn't the truth. And he said masks don't work at all. In the middle of last summer, the New England Journal wrote, there was an article and an essay, and in the New England Journal, you know what they called masks? They called them a talisman. What's a talisman? Sort of like something that makes you feel better. It's like a totem. But it wasn't real. They said it would help with generalized anxiety. We're wearing the mask for theater, but you're also wearing the mask because they want you to submit. That's why they're telling you it's not going to be for your youth. It's not just going to be your college graduation. It's going to be your wedding. It's going to be your 5-year anniversary after you've been married. It's going to be your 10-year anniversary. It's going to be your life. Because they're telling us that even the vaccine doesn't work. These people are like, oh yes, the vaccine's great. A mask is better. Mask is so much better and so much quicker. Wear your mask. Vaccine's not as good as a mask. But then they're saying, you know what? When you get a vaccine, you probably won't get sick, but you could still be a carrier. Completely against everything science says. When you have a vaccine, when you get vaccinated, when you have immunity, guess what? You'll have as good immunity as I do from already having had it. How many people have had it in the audience? About 15, 20%. So a lot of people have had this. The official numbers say 16 million. It's really probably 35, 40. It's a much bigger number because some people had so few symptoms they never even bothered to get tested. But here's the thing. Every day in the halls of Congress, you know, I am a little bit of a rebel. So I don't wear my mask. And they come up to me, the Democrats, by and large, and some of them are like very frightened, and they walk to the other side of the room. And the other day I got on the elevator, or actually I was standing at the elevator, and Elizabeth Warren comes up, and I said, well, so I said, Elizabeth, after you, and I think that made her mad also. So she gets on the elevator, and I get on the elevator with Elizabeth Warren. She went crazy and ran off the elevator because I didn't have a mask on. And I said, Elizabeth, have you heard of immunity? You believe in the vaccine, right? So why wouldn't you believe in the science that's behind the vaccine, the science that when you get a disease, you get natural immunity? Now, I can't say if it's forever, but they can't say the vaccine's forever either. But all of the tests, all of the science, not just some of the science, every scientific test that has been done in the last 9 months shows that you have immunity. Not one test says you don't. But you know what they say? They'll say to you, well, you know, some people are getting it twice, so if you can get it, and Fauci will say this. Fauci doesn't pay attention to any of the science or any of the evidence. You know how many people that they've sort of confirmed have gotten it twice? 5. So you got 5 out of 16 million. Does that sound like the rule or the exception? Oh, very good. This is a smart crowd. But here's the thing. So they say, oh, no, you can get it again, so you got to wear a mask. So they've completely discounted immunity. So what I've said is this. We have a shortage of the vaccine right now, and I do want the people to get the vaccine who want to take it, particularly the elderly, the infirm, those in nursing homes, or healthcare workers. I've got a sister who's a doctor and a brother who's a doctor. They do want to take the vaccine. I'm not against that. I'm for that. But you know what? It would go a lot further if you admitted that the people who already have it don't need to be first in line for it. But they're going crazy because it's not about the science. It's all about submission. Why do they want to hold me down and give me the vaccine? Because they want me to submit. They want people to submit. And I'm not making an argument against the vaccine. Please, go get vaccinated if you're at risk. But also, you should be allowed to have a choice. In a free country, shouldn't you get a choice? What if everything they told you was a lie? The flu. What has a higher death rate for your age group, under age 25? Seasonal flu or COVID? Seasonal flu. Absolutely, seasonal flu. But the thing is, you say that and they go insane. What do you think Mr. Jack Dorsey will do if I tweet that out later today? He'll go insane because there's only one truth and they have it. But this didn't just get started with COVID. You know when this started? Well, it started maybe longer ago than that, but with climate. The climate consensus. If you disagree with the climate consensus, you know, you're verboten. You should be forbidden from decent society. You shouldn't get to tweet. You shouldn't get to talk because you're a contrarian. Anything that goes against what they say is the truth. But the thing is that's the opposite of science. It's the opposite of liberty. But liberty and science infuse each other because how do we get science? By questioning. What did Einstein say? Einstein said, I'm always one experiment away from being disproven. One of the smartest scientists and physicists who most of us can barely comprehend all of the things he was working on, and yet he said he was always one experiment away. They weren't into groupthink. If you get into groupthink, it's the end of freedom. It's the end of our society if we're all going to have to think the same. Only one truth, and somebody else gets to decide what it is. We have to think for ourselves. But I will say to my mind, this is, something we have to resist. We have to resist these people or we'll forever be submissive. But at the same time, there's so much greatness to this country. The president said, make America great again. But we have to know what made us great in the first place. What if everything they told you was a lie? They tell you that the racists hate each other. They say that racism is worse than it's ever been and that blacks and whites don't like each other. Look, my kids are your age, one of them's here. They don't think in terms of race at all. They don't even think of their friends as being of a race. Our generation was a little more conscious of race than the generation before, but it's been getting better and better and better. Is it perfect? No, but there's less racism. There's more intermarriage. There's more integration of churches. There's more voluntary association than there's ever been. We don't hate each other. My wife and I were attacked by a mob in D.C. The mob was both black and white, but you know what our defenders were? Both black and white. 2 out of the 3 policemen who saved our life were African American. We've got to get away from the negativism. We've got to get away from the pessimism. We've got to believe in what made us great, but we have to tell these nanny staters they need to leave us the hell alone. There's a website that I'm a big fan of. It's called humanprogress.org, and it talks about how far we've come and how good things actually are. And you'll never get any of this if you watch the news. They know nothing of progress. They know nothing of productivity. They know nothing of what made our country great. In 1820, at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, 90% of the world lived in extreme poverty. The only people who really had extravagance, in fact, the only people who were overweight or had enough food were the royalty. It was a very small number. 90% of people lived on less than $2 a day. When I was born in the early 1960s, it had gone down to a third. It wasn't an accident. It didn't just sort of happen. It isn't sort of a normal thing. It happened because of what Adam Smith talked about, capitalism and trade and division of labor. But the thing is, it's getting better. Do you know what it is now? Less than 10% of the whole world. I'm not talking about just our country. I'm talking about a lot of the poor countries around the world. Less than 10% of the world lives on $2 a day now. We've gone from 90% of the world to less than 10%. Things are getting better. I think I heard someone mention stealing elections. You know, what do we do? What are we going to do about this? Actually, it's got me all choked up, too. If someone's listening, could you bring me some water, please? I'm going to finish with this. We can't sweep it under the rug. We have to do something about it. What can we do? How can we fix this? Thank you. How do we fix this? Most of this was done by people who actually broke the law. How do you get people to obey the law when the law already tells them they shouldn't do it? You got to have better people. And so part of it is this. It isn't enough to elect Republicans. I'm not a Republican first. I'm a conservative, a constitutional conservative. If you have a Secretary of State who thinks they can change the law, get rid of them. What they did to the law was they essentially just changed the law without the permission of the legislature. We're going to have to go back to every state legislature. We control 35 of them. But the Republicans in charge didn't do a good job in many of these states. Those Republicans need to be given a pass to go home. So if you want to stop the steal, you got to get the right people in your state government, but you got to enforce the law. But the other thing is, you have to vote in person. So this is how bad the groupthink is. If you simply say that it is inherently more likely to have fraud when you have mail-in ballots, you are now a liar. Cup of Joe, Morning Joe, what's his face? He'll call you a liar on television. And it's like, really? If I show up in person and show my ID and they look at my picture and look at it and I sign next to my signature and they look at my signature, you don't think that's more valid than someone mailing a ballot in? We have to go back to traditional elections in our country, or we're not going to be able to have valid elections. And what I would say, and I'm going to end with this, don't let your disappointment over what's happened to us, don't let your disappointment over them stealing the election cause you to say, oh, well, we can never win, they'll just steal them forever. No, get angry, fight, get even, go out there, and let's take our country back. Thank you.